Okay, now that we have the animation totally done, I want to show you how to render out your file so that you can make a QuickTime movie or an AVI or anything like that. The Will model that was on the previous two DVDs had some issues where the eyes, the reflectivity on the properties for the eyes was way too high, and so it was interfering. So I'm going to actually put this new model where I fixed the eyes up on the DVD and probably up on my site. So if you need it to render out, you can get that one. Anyways, first of all, if you ever want to check what it's going to look like while you're animating or anything like that, if you hit Q, it'll bring up this render icon. If you right click and drag, you can drag an area and it will render that area. Hit escape. If you hit Shift Q, it's a render lock, so that it'll do a progressive render on it, which won't anti-alias or anything, but you can then tumble or animate and it will render as it goes if it doesn't crash. Okay, so now that I've finished the animation, I want to do a render of it, and what I want to show you now is how to set it up so that you can render. In previous DVDs that I've done, I noticed that the Will model had a problem where if you rendered it, his eyes were totally reflective and it looked like a chrome sphere, or at least 75%. So the model on this DVD will be fixed so that it doesn't create spherical chrome eyes. A little bit of reflectivity is good, but not too much. When you're rendering, we already set the properties in the camera object of how we wanted it to be rendered. We went to object or output options and changed it to DV. The frame range I'm actually going to change up in the render dialog box, and I'll show you that here in a second. If you ever want to look at and see what it looks like rendered on the screen without actually doing a render, you can hit Q and then right click and drag a box around your object or in your window and it'll render it out for you like this. If you hit Shift Q, it does a render lock, so it does a progressive render and then you can move your view around and it will render it. I wouldn't recommend moving your view around a whole lot. I just use Shift Q to kind of look and see what it looks like, and then I hit escape. So now I want to go render it to a file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to this button right here, Render to File, click on it, and it's going to bring up Render to File settings. Now here under my format, I can choose whatever I want: target sequence, AVI, a QuickTime movie. I'm going to change it to a QuickTime movie and then open up the format, and to change the compression, you click on it and it will bring up this dialog. I'm going to change it to a Sorensen Video 3. And I want it at 30 frames a second. That's fine. That's fine. I'm just going to say OK. File name, I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to just go out and call it will my side dot move. OK. Now sometimes it doesn't refresh the view, but you just click on an arrow and it'll do it. Now range, I want it to go to 330. So I hit OK. I want it DV. That's fine. Gamma and buffers, I don't care about any of this kind of thing. That's fine. Now I'm going to go to options. Now under quality, I want final. Multipass, I actually want on. If I turn, now what multipass does is it will do really nice anti-aliasing depending on how many passes you have. It also allows for motion blur. And so if I have multipass on, I usually turn it to about 5 or 9 pass. It depends on how fast I want it to render. But I'll go to 9 pass. Actually, let's go to 5 just so we can see it here. Motion blur I'll turn on, and I usually leave it at about 20%. Depth of field I don't turn on. Shadows, okay. Reflections, no big deal, they're on, but let's just turn them off because there is no reflection going on in here. Draw particles, hair, I don't need those on, and the rest of these you can learn about them online, about what they do: tune rendering, field rendering, stereo, all that kind of stuff. So once I'm ready to do this, I can actually hit cancel, and that stuff is still saved in there. So if I go back to my options, well, I didn't save it when I canceled it, but let me show you some things real quick here. If I go to my camera, and I'm going to go to my properties, I'm actually going to go to render options, quality, final, multi-pass on. I'm going to change it to 9 or 5 pass. Motion blur on, leave it at 20%, depth field off, shadows on, reflections off, draw particles hair off. Okay, and then I'm going to go to output options, go to QuickTime Movie, set my format, that's fine. I'm going to call it what I just did, so will my side. Okay, frame range, I want to change it to 330, and all the rest is fine. So now one thing I want to do is I want to test out something. So I want to, now this area right here is going to have some good motion blur in it, so I want to see if it's going to work. Now if I do a progressive render, it's not going to show. If I do a normal render, it's really not going to show either. But when I do a final render, I'll be able to see what it looks like with the motion blur on. So let's go up to render file. I'm going to click right here again, and everything's set like it was before, so I don't have to worry about anything except under options. I'm going to turn on multi-pass, go back to 5. Motion blur, turn it on, leave it at 20%. Depth of field off, shadows on, off, off. Just make sure everything's right. Okay, looks good. I'm going to hit OK. Now it's going to go through and render each frame and just show me what each frame looks like. Now it's doing the passes, if you notice. And it's going to take quite some time. You can see each frame, and it tells you like how long each frame is going to go. So I'm going to render it out, but you can see the motion blur being calculated right here. Now it may be too much, it may not be enough. You can change it with the percentage. But I'm just going to render it out like this, and I'll pause it while it does that, and then I'll let you know when it's done. Okay, it's finished rendering, so when it does this, you can just close the window. It'll come back to here. Now what I can do is I can just click this play animation file, and it should go right to where it is. Hit open. And it'll open it up and play it.
Don't touch my stuff. This is my side of the living room, and that is your side of the living room. And much to drink straight out of a milk carton. It's disgusting.
So it turned out pretty good.
My stuff. This is my side of the living room, and that is your side of the living room. And much to drink straight out of a milk carton. It's disgusting.
So it turned out pretty good. The rendering, the geometry is a little whacked. What I need to do is put porcelain on it, and it'll kind of smooth it out a little bit, and I can do that later on. But yeah, it's a pretty good little render, pretty good animation. I could do there's a lot I already see that I could do to fix it, but the basics of it are covered, and I think it's worth taking another shot at and sprucing things up a little bit. So hopefully that will allow you to do some animations, render them out, get them in QuickTime or AVI or however you'd like to do them, put them on a DVD, and be ready to go with your animations. So hope you've enjoyed the animation tutorials. Hope it's been a help to you, and I hope that in the future that if you have any questions or anything that you'll post them on the forum, and maybe I'll be there to answer some for you. So thank you very much, and happy animating.